everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. We have our guest today, Raul Gomez. He is a lot of things, so I'm going to have him explain that today. He's going to actually make it clear to the world today what he does. And then we're going to talk about, the economy, inflation, whatever comes out. So this is going to be a kind of a cool episode because we're not really doing an interview. We're having a conversation. This is probably going to go a lot of different places, so bear with us, but enjoy the ride. All right, so the infamous question, what do you do?
So I partnered with you back in 2016.
Okay.
And basically I do finances, man. Anything having to do with money, anything having to do with people just having financial questions, financial burdens, and that could be anything from, how do I insure, protect my family? How do I save? How do I better manage my assets? How do I get myself out of debt? It's such a huge scope when it comes to finances. People have so many different types of questions, and I really just try to give them clarity as best I can.
Who's like the ideal person for you to work with?
Oh, well, I mean, ideally, I like to work with high net worth people because they have more complex problems. But, I mean, I will always try to help anyone who needs the help. Really, the only requirement that I have is, number one, that they value my time, and number two, that they take me seriously. And the problem is that a lot of the times when you work with people that maybe are not, for lack of a better word, as refined, and I'm not trying to discriminate anyone, but a lot of the time,
you are.
I mean,
you are. Let's be honest here.
What I'm saying is that people need to value your time.
Well,
and a lot of times what happens is when you try to do something nice for someone, and sometimes because you know that their financial situation isn't very good, like you'll do it for cheap or for free, a lot of the times they don't value your time. And that's one of my pet peeves. So to circle back to your original question, I like to work more with higher net worth people just because they have more complex problems, and I really feel like I can help them more.
Okay. Well, I think you can help a lot of people. I think what you're saying, though, I'll summarize it. I'll be blunt. You're just saying people who really don't have a lot of money probably don't value anybody's time because they probably don't value their own.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I know this. I just recorded a video the other day about this, and I was like, look, guys, I understand you need help, and I understand you think I can help you, but most of the time if I said show up to a meeting, you would miss it, reschedule, or not, appreciate the time that I give you. And so it's very hard for me to say I want to help you when I know you don't even want to help yourself.
True.
I mean, that's a hard – and what I found, by the way, Raul, as I've kind of learned a lot about this kind of media content thing, is that you just got to tell people, like, hey, like either you're going to pay me to show up or not, because I can't waste time. Not because we don't love people, because, I mean, there's people in my family that I won't even meet with because the truth is I know I'm going to show up. They're going to ask me a bunch of questions, and then most people are just looking for what? You know what it is, right?
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
They're looking for free advice.
And validation.
And validation.
Right.
Yeah.
They already know what they want. They're just trying to come to you because they think you're smart, and because you're a smart guy, they're like, if he agrees with me,
that means that it's true.
Yeah. So they're going to come to you and be like, so I want to buy this house, right? And they're going to ask, but I want to rent this one for more money. And they already know what they really want to do, right? So should I rent it first and pay the $2,000, or should I buy a house, right? They already know the answer in their mind.
Right.
But they just want validation.
It's funny that you say that because I have a friend, and he's actually relatively pretty successful, and he's actually an engineer. And I mean, I consider him a close friend, but anytime that he calls me, and he calls me pretty frequently, and he sends me messages, all he wants is validation.
They all do.
So very rarely does he take into consideration anything that I'm saying. It's just he only chooses to retain the information that I say that is
related to what he wants to
do.
And
I'm just like, why'd you call me? Yeah, and so we circle back to when people don't pay for something, then they don't value the information.
That's right. Because they're not looking for a solution. They're looking for validation.
So I'll give you an example. I mean, I have like younger kids that I have on my Facebook, maybe like in their 20s. I consider them kids because I'm 37. And they're like, man, I have $300.
What do I do with it?
What do I do with these $300 to change my life? And I'm just like, maybe you buy 30 books. I mean, you can't really do
30 books. Yeah, I like that.
You can't really do a whole lot with $300. I mean,
you can get an insurance license.
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah. I mean,
that's crazy to say, but you could do that, and not to say that insurance is the only thing to do,
right.
But you can get a license.
Insurance, real estate, whatever. So my advice for people in that scenario that maybe only have $300 to invest in something, really the best investment at that point in your life is just invest in yourself. Figure out how you can take those $300 and build your skills so you can make more money.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The only investment that pays when you have no money is you. I mean, when you have no money, it's the only way to make money.
Right.
And when you have a lot of money, though, it's the opposite.
Right.
Like, you can use your money to make more money.
Sure.
But when you have no money, you have to use it on you and not go out to drink and party and
Yep.
whatever they're going to do with it. Because I did a lot of that in my teens and 20s. So I can't say that I can't say I would give them crap.
Right.
But I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have known more that you should just invest in you when I was younger. That would have been so much. I mean, my life would be so much different if I had just read books. I didn't read till like my late 20s.
Yeah.
I don't know. When did you start reading books?
I started reading when I quit my job, and that was back in 2016. So maybe like the last 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten a lot smarter in the last 5 to 6 years than I did in my entire because I had a lot of formal education. In my entire formal education career, I learned like 10% of what I know now, and everything else I learned when I quit my job and decided to be an entrepreneur and figured that the only way I was going to get paid is to continue to build my skills, and the only way I was going to be able to continue to build my skills is to learn. But learn from people that have done it, not necessarily people that theory and application to completely different things. So, there's only so much that you can learn about running a business from somebody who just teaches about running a business.
Because in theory, it always works.
In theory, it always works, yeah. But then when you actually talk to people who are actually running a business, it's a completely different dynamic.
It was when I got into business, I remember going to this small business administration seminar, and they tell you got to have a business plan, and the business plan is going to tell you a lot. Now, today, actually, I was like, this is stupid. I didn't really want to make business plans then. Today, looking back, now it makes a lot more sense to have a business plan. But business plans typically are always best case scenarios.
Right.
They're never, what if shit hits the fan?
Yep.
And so you have all these ambitions because you're like, I'm going to be a millionaire in 6 months. And it's never that way, dude. It's so something came up right there because you said formal education, which is college, university. Mm-hmm. Those are the things I think of. Just recently, I was thinking about this because somebody brought me a scenario, and they have a master's degree, and so that means they got their bachelor's, then they got their master's, and a lot of that required them to go into debt.
Sure.
Okay, and they're in the public sector, so they work for a government agency, not a federal government, a state. So that means you don't make a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah.
And so they got a degree, and they put themselves like $50,000 in debt to do it. Okay. And so I didn't catch on to this. Not this, but I was trying to figure out because they got it after working in that same government agency for let's say 20 years. Mm-hmm. So then they decided to get it so they could advance. And then I was thinking, what's the advancement? And the advancement was only like a $5,000 raise. Mm-hmm. So then I was thinking, how does somebody make a decision to go into higher education? If you retire at 30 years, he's already 20 years in. You got $5,000 more per year. So you got 10 years, you get $50,000. So you're going to get $50,000 to pay off $50,000. So It's like a wash. And I'm wondering, do people think like that or not? Do they even know that they're doing that?
I don't think it's so much that they crunch the numbers. I think it's just they've reached a point in their lives where they want progress. Progress.
Yeah, happiness.
Progress equals happiness, and so they've reached a point in their life where I want progress. It's not so much about the money. It's I want to make more progress, and that's the only way that they know how. I know that when I was a teacher, I was trying to figure out. Okay, I know I don't want to be a teacher forever. So what's my next step? And so for pretty much every teacher in America, their next step is to become an administrator, right?
It's principal.
Being a principal, right, or being a counselor, but generally speaking, they lean more towards being an administrator because there is
it's an easier role.
Well, no, actually, not really.
Oh, really?
No, because when you're an administrator, especially like an assistant principal, you have to work 7 days a week. Wow. You have to work a lot. But they see it as a good way for them to kind of pave the road to drastically increasing their income because let's say most teachers make $50,000 and administrators are going to be more between the $80,000 and $100,000.
Oh, okay, that's a huge difference. That's significant enough for me to make that decision.
It is. However, the problem with that is that every other teacher in America has the same thought process, which means that now you have a market where it's so saturated,
oversaturated.
So you have one job opening. You have one job opening, and you have I don't know, like 50
and if you
applicants.
get it, you can't advance from there until somebody dies.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that sounds crazy, but
but it's the truth. And so when I analyzed that a little bit, I was like, yeah, I don't really think that's the route I want to go. And so then I told myself, well, let me see if I can get a master's in business. So I went back to school, got my MBA. Luckily for me, I mean, I've always been very diligent with savings and very diligent with my finances. So I literally paid for my whole master's cash.
Like, how much was it though?
It was probably about $40,000. Yeah, and I paid for it cash. So when I actually finished my master's, I had no debt.
Yeah, but it's still cash. I
mean,
either you take the debt or you pay it. You're still paying it.
I'm still paying it. I mean, but the good thing is that because I didn't have that debt when I finished my master's and realized that I got a master's in business and I had zero business experience, nobody was going to hire me in the business sector. Then that's when I just decided to quit and just kind of pave my own road as far as business was concerned.
Yeah, well, it's just interesting to me when I did that little analysis without them. I didn't tell them this, but I was just in my mind thinking, okay, so you go get a master's for like $50,000 to get a $5,000 raise. You're only going to work 10 more years, so you're actually getting a complete wash.
Right.
Like there's no benefit for you to get at that master's other than just the feeling
of getting a master's,
and that's it. And I was just like, man, this is so. It's so crazy to me, and it's so incredible to know that people who have the ambition to go get a master's and do it, that means they are hardworking. That means they are pretty good at studying, which means focus. They're probably really good at making sure they get the job done.
Sure.
And then they use it and apply it at something that just didn't give them a return. I'm like, why wouldn't they do that at something else, like anything else? Like, golly.
It's because there's a certain sense of structure in following that system, and it makes them feel comfortable. They're like, you know what, I'm working on this, and I have something to fall back on. Everything is quote unquote guaranteed, even though it's not. And I think that's because they're okay going that route, even if the return on investment isn't as great. Whereas, and if you take those same $40,000 and you quit your job and you go and start a business, man, at that point, like there are no guarantees. But realistically, there's no guarantees in anything. I mean, there's no guarantee that your employer's not going to fire you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's really all about perception, and I think the people that go that route, where they get a master's only to get a $5,000 bump in salary, is just because that's kind of what they feel comfortable with, and that's what mostly everybody else is doing. So
yeah, it's following the herd.
Yeah, it's following the herd, and it's something within the realm of comfort for them.
Yeah, I mean, I understood some of those things, but I'm just thinking in my mind, like, oh, this has got to suck.
Yeah,
like that's got to suck, and then you have to justify that all your life, and if you ever figure it out, like you truly figure it out like you did, you're like, why did I do it?
Yeah, I would love to have my $40,000 back. But I will tell you though, one of the good things that came from getting my master's is I got to meet some really good people.
Network.
Yeah, and actually,
discipline.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that I would like to do, and I can do that because I have a master's in business. In the future, if I want to like coordinate, and that's actually on my to-do list, I would like to coordinate with a university, and I can teach.
That's kind of cool.
But I would like to teach like a business class where I'm not necessarily going off of a book, but I'm going more off of real life and sales and stuff like that, which is pretty much what I've been doing for the last 5 years.
Would be really cool, instead of like a class, maybe like an incubator. Have you ever heard of that concept? So they do these things like most economic development corporations, every city typically has one, at least, not a big city, but even like the city we're in right now has one. And what they do is they just kind of build out an office space, and businesses who want to be a startup in their first year, they actually can use that office space as their own.
Okay.
And then the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, is like giving them counsel, helping them succeed, like giving them advice. And maybe if there's resources that they can lend them, like computers or printers or boardrooms, they allow them to use those facilities either at a very heavily discounted rate or pretty much practically free.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And I like all those things, by the way. I mean, I would, if you were to say, hey, I want to help, they would totally let you just come in and just kind of, preach the gospel, if you will. That, I think it's super cool, that they do those things. I mean, obviously, everybody who wants to start a business has to do all what I just said, and they're giving it to them.
Okay, cool.
So maybe that would be a route as opposed to going to a university, which is
well. and I'll tell you the reason why I would, but that's actually like a pretty cool idea,
because you don't have to follow
a certain protocol. Yeah. I would like to do it in a university setting, because I feel like a lot of these maybe younger generations that are wanting to get into business, they're not getting the true perspective.
Oh, no, never.
But they never get the true perspective. They get the theory, not the actual application. So if I had an opportunity to do that, because that's where, it doesn't matter what you and I say. Most of them, if they want to get into business, that's the route they're going to go. They're going to go and get their bachelor's in business, maybe get their master's in business, because that's the formal route. Although I will tell you that YouTube is changing the game. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays are leaning more towards social media and YouTube to learn about business than they are the traditional education route.
That's a good thing. Like, learning from those sources is good. Now, I used to be an advocate and tell people you should be looking for YouTube videos. You should be looking for people who are experts. The problem today is everybody's a fucking expert.
Everybody's an expert.
And it bothers the heck out of me. Because one of the things that people miss by not going to college, actually I caught this the other day, they don't know how to do proper research. Because in college you learn, like, okay, these are trusted sources, this is credibility, this is how you determine if something is good or not. Like, they teach you those kind of analytical skills inherently without actually telling you. You have to learn them. You have to pick them up. And if you don't get those skills, then whenever somebody says anything on social media, you're like, it's got to be right.
It's got to be true. He's on social media.
Yeah, he's on social media.
So it's true, yeah.
And so I get calls all the time. David, I have this thing, man. I read this guy, or I heard this, and we want to do this. And I'm like, who told you that? And they're like, oh, I saw this video. Like, who was it from? I don't know, some guy. He just looked like he knew what he was doing. I'm like, totally wrong. Like, or they don't understand that maybe the guy is saying the right things, but he's saying it to people that's not their, like, they're not in that situation, but they think they're in that situation.
Sure.
Like, last night I got a notification. I guess I started following a guy on Instagram, and he's like a tax guy. So I clicked on it. The guy was wearing a big gold chain, a T-shirt, a backwards cap, and and he was telling people how they're going to save $10,000 on their tax return this year. And obviously, he probably could have known what he was saying. I listened to a little bit. He wasn't saying anything that was a lie. But, he definitely didn't fit the part of a tax professional or somebody I would trust to do my taxes. And he was selling a course, and I was just like, golly, man, like, how do you make a decision if this guy's legitimate or not?
I guess it really just depends on the target,
the
target market that you're trying to impact. And
I get it. Anyways, but anybody with a microphone and a internet service can do whatever they want. And, I think that is a beauty and a curse at the exact same time.
Well, one of the things that bothers me a lot, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, but everybody's a coach now. Everybody's a life coach. Everybody's a business coach. But realistically, all they're doing is they're trying to set up a platform to be able to sell and make a lot of money, and that's really their I guess path to fame or path to riches, right? They haven't accomplished anything before, but maybe they're just good salesmen, or they're good on the camera or whatever. That's how they build their wealth. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but I do feel like you have to have some sort of a track record of trials and failures and a successful business, so that then you can take that and go and coach someone.
Yeah, well, rarely in business, though, do the best win. It's the loudest. So if they're loud, they're going to win. I don't like them either. I always see people hit me up with things. I'm like, who are you? Like, I do vet people all the time. Like, I'm vetting people not by followers, by their content.
Sure.
But I have the ability to see through the content in most cases and be like, that's right. But I think there's this movement, and it's been going on for about maybe a decade now, of a bunch of Tony Robbins wannabe guys.
Sure.
Like, I know I have a little Tony in me because of, like, the content that I've consumed. Like, some of the content I spit out somewhat is like Tony, but I don't use that as my calling. Like, my calling is tax preparation, tax planning, coaching tax business owners. And I don't go in there and talk to them about, oh, well, let's talk about, mindset, and let's just get your mind right. Because that's like almost every single damn coach today, and they all think they're so good at this. And I'm just like, guys, Tony Robbins is the guy. Mm-hmm. If you're going to follow anybody, follow that guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's a real deal.
Yeah, he's the real deal. And a lot of people think that that's coaching. That's not coaching. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. You got to give somebody something they can take action on. And just a mindset thing. That's just a positioning. And I see that a lot.
Well, I mean, if you look at the guys that I follow are all dudes that have built like multi-million-dollar businesses. You talk about Grant Cardone, you talk about Ed Milet and Patrick Bet-David. So like they actually, before they became like the massive influencers that they are today, they built like these massive businesses. Like these guys are super successful, and so now they take all of those experiences and they share them with us. And so those guys, like for me, I mean, they're top notch. But then, like, I'll run into, like, a 20-year-old who's, like, trying to teach business. I'm like, this guy's 20 years old. Yeah. I mean, so maybe they created a successful YouTube channel and they got a lot of followers. Okay, well, that's good. But as far as business is concerned, they really haven't done much. So in those situations, I'm very hesitant to follow those people just because I like the more, if you want to say, like, not necessarily more refined, but the ones that are a little bit older, a little bit they got the experience, dude. And those are the people that I want to learn from.
Yeah. We got to make some judgment calls.
So what's the whole deal with this Inflation Reduction Act, which could just AKA be we're kind of raising your taxes? I mean, is that what's happening?
Well, the cool thing, the thing is about this, I haven't read it all, so I'm not going to tell you all the details that I don't know. I'll just tell you what I do know, and I will tell you that based on what I see, I don't see how it even lowers anything called inflation, just to be clear. The majority of the things in there is to support green energy efficient stuff, IRS stuff, and then some healthcare things.
So this whole adding 80,000 agents, to the IRS, is that part of the Inflation Act?
Yeah. So how does that reduce inflation? I don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It just kind of circles back to...
So they squeeze.
Taxes.
So basically, what I can gather based on just kind of knowing what there was a plan, I think it was last year that our president put together called the Build Back Better, and then that didn't pass. And so what this is kind of like pieces of it. And since inflation is a hot topic,
they just renamed it.
Yeah, renamed it, put it together, and let's get it through the, because it's a better name. Hey, it's a sales pitch, right? Like you just name something different, right? It's the
because inflation is the biggest problem.
Right. This is a cup, but if I call it right, this is the keep your coffee warm, never get cold. And they're like, oh, I want that now. It's just the way you sell it. So they sold this and it passed. And, the majority of it has a lot to do with green energy, which is cool. There's some tax incentives in green energy. I know that there's going to be tax incentives. I don't know if they go retroactive for this year, but definitely moving forward to buy EV vehicles. Okay. You're going to be able to get credits up to $7,000. That was disappearing. It's all the way up to, I think, 30 now, 2030. We're going to get a $7,000 credit for EV vehicles. The only difference between what was previous and what is today, there's going to be income limitations, so you can't be rich and do it. An interesting thing I saw, though, is that they're going to extend the ability to get that credit is also going to extend to used vehicles, used EV, and I think hybrid.
So does it matter if somebody else used the credit for that one particular vehicle? It's per individual.
Yeah, it's a per individual.
But it's a lower credit if the car is
used. $4,000. That's what I heard. Okay. I read rather. Another cool thing though is that in 2 years, instead of that, because that credit is typically reconciled on a tax return, in 2 years it's going to be reconciled at the dealership.
Okay.
So when you go, they're just going to give you the 7 rebate right there.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool because that means you're actually going to finance less.
So I guess my question is if once these badass trucks, the Ford trucks that have the generator built in them, if you buy one of those for your company, now you're able to take the depreciation on the vehicle for company use, and you're able to get the credit as well
for green.
Oh, cool!
It's gonna be cool. So that is kind of like tax stuff, but the real thing, like you mentioned, is the 87,000 agents. Now that is over the course of like 10 years. I think it's either 8 or 10. I don't remember, but either way, this is the way I think about it. Yes, the IRS is going to become more powerful in the sense that they can actually implement a lot of the things that they haven't been doing. Because to be honest, for the last like 5 years, IRS is shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't answer the phone. They don't process tax returns. They don't do their job. And they're understaffed. They're undermanned. They're under technology. There's a lot of things that are wrong with the IRS, which could be benefit to some and could be a detriment to others. So it just depends on where you see it. With this new money and I guess we'll call it resources, they're going to be able to man up a little bit, and they're going to be able to enforce a lot of the things they're missing. I mean, there's a lot of bad tax pros out there. There's a lot of bad taxpayers out there that commit fraud.
Right.
They're going to catch a lot of that, hopefully.
Right.
And they're going to make it so that, people pay their fair share. Am I okay with that? I mean, I don't know if I'm okay with it. I would just say that the tax code is written to follow, and if you follow it, you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Right.
That's it. But I also thought about this. They're going to hire this over the next 10 years. So 87,000, that's like 8,000 a year. in that same time frame, we have to understand that all the people that are working for IRS right now, probably a quarter or more are going to retire.
Most of them are probably pretty old, yeah.
So, we're just filling jobs that were probably going to be vacant in the next few years anyways.
Sure.
So I don't think this is a big deal. I do think that there is going to be heavier audits, so people need to be prepared for that. Document things, get more organized, work with an accountant or a CPA or a tax professional, a bookkeeper, and make sure your shit is right. That is important. Now, I will tell you one interesting thing, and this might be for tax professionals specifically, because this is going to be, this is super interesting to me, and I haven't talked about this publicly, and I've been thinking about making some content on it because it's crazy. They're funding now. There's a good portion of the funding, not billions or anything. It's a few million. They're going to fund the expansion of the free file program, which means taxpayers could go onto the website of the IRS, which they could have done before, and file their return for free.
Okay.
Which is good for the people. I get it. For people who need to file their return, don't have any money, or don't feel like they need a tax professional, go to the site. You can file your return for free. The catch is that you had to be in somewhat of knowledgeable, because you have to take your forms and you have to enter them in to make sure you're doing it correctly. And then if you get it right, you submit. And there's no charge. It's totally free. And it was meant for taxpayers who didn't have complex returns. So that's cool. What they're going to try to do now is fund it so right now everybody's tax forms, if you have a W-2 or interest statement or anything that you get from any financial institution that owes you or employer company that owes you a statement, they already send it to the IRS. It's already documented.
Right.
So what they're going to fund now is the advancement of that technology to pre-populate a tax return on their site.
Oh, with all the tax documents.
Correct.
That would make it a lot easier.
Okay, so the cool thing is that they couldn't do that for everybody, because for an example, business owners, you can do that even if it was just 1099s. There still has to be expenses added there, and nobody's going to do it themselves online. That would be dumb, especially in the IRS website. I would not do that.
So, a quick question: if that's always been available, then what's the value that a TurboTax brings? Was that just that they're walking you on a step-by-step through the process?
Well, so TurboTax and all the other big companies, they actually participated in that program with the IRS. So that free was actually an extension of the IRS. The IRS said, we're going to use ours on our site, and we're going to give we're going to help support big companies to do free stuff too.
Okay.
So that was an effort from the IRS. But this was different because that was still self-entered. This is actually going to be done. You just have to go in there and verify.
Okay.
That's it. Now, for business owners, we'll talk about them right now, but 70% of tax returns today could be done that way.
Yeah.
70%.
You think they'll do it that way?
Well, because they can't change. So the different. I don't know if they will, but here's the deal. If you're W-2s only, maybe an interest statement for your mortgage, and you have health care through the marketplace or whatever, that's it. Let's just say those three things. Even if you came to me, I couldn't do anything for you. I'm just going to data entry, and I'm going to send it to the IRS. There's no secret sauce. There's no special code for you. There's no special deduction. You're just, that's just how it is.
Right.
So imagine if you could go to the IRS website, click on it, it'll show you your refund is $3,000 or you owe $3,000, whatever the deal is.
Right.
You come to me and it says $3,000, the same number. Why wouldn't you just go do it free? Because I can't do anything special.
Right.
And that's going to be 70% of Americans who can do that.
Yeah.
So an industry that we're in right now, which is the tax industry, is going to be impacted. But it's only going to impact people who focus on people who truly just didn't need somebody to help them.
The whole transactional business model.
Correct.
I'm going to take your information, input it, and then that's what you get.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if this kind of fruition happens, there's going to be a shift in this business, the model that I'm in, which we've already shifted anyways. We're not working with people who just have a W-2. I want people – the tax code is here to benefit two people, investors and business owners. That's it.
Sure.
Two people. If you're an employee, unfortunately, the code is written against you.
Right.
I love the analogy. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it's – or not analogy, the illustration. It's if you're an employee, you get your pay, then they take taxes out, and you get to keep what's left. That's how it works, right? You get your payroll, $100, then they take out the taxes, send it to the government, and whatever's left, you get to go spend your money with it. Like, that's your money. Business owner makes money, spends money to run his business and his life, and gets to pay taxes on what's left. It's the opposite.
Massive difference.
It's so you get to control your destiny if you're a business owner. And it's a totally different. So anyways, going back to this, what I'm going to see now is, everybody that I work with and coach in the tax space, I want them to start shifting to businesses only.
Right.
Because if that really does happen and you're stuck with only clients who really just didn't need you, you're screwed.
Yeah. You're out of business.
You're out of business. But the clients is in a better place. Truthfully, if they don't need me, why do I take their money? Like, that's the truth. I feel that way. Like, I don't want to do things for people that they can do themselves.
Sure.
Unless they don't want to do it themselves.
Then
I'll take their money.
Yeah. There'll be a chunk that'll still fall into that boat, because I know, like, a lot of the bigger entities, they'll be able to give you an advance on your refund, and so there's perks with going with some of these entities that do just that, just the transactional tax business model. And then some people. We circle back to the reassurance. Some people, there's a lot of things that people can do on their own. Like me, for example, if somebody asks me about crypto or stocks, that's all stuff that they really don't need me for. They can do all that stuff on their own, but they come for the reassurance. Right?
Correct. But what if I can compare it, what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%. So I think that if, let's say, 70% of tax returns can be done that way moving forward, I'd say at least half of that will be
still not do it.
Yeah, half of it won't do it, half of it will. And it's probably going to be the half that are making a little bit more money and are relatively pretty smart. And let's say, for example, teachers, like somebody who makes $55,000, $60,000 a year, they're relatively computer savvy. They'll figure it out and they'll do it.
What I thought about it is everybody who does their own taxes anyways, like all the TurboTax clients that go online and do it themselves,
right?
They're all going to go to the website.
Yeah,
like it just killed TurboTax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because why would you go there if you could just do the same thing on there?
You can do it. Now, things that could also happen, because I know that generally speaking, when you get into the tax business and you become like a tax preparer or a tax manager, you have to buy a software, right?
Yep.
So what keeps these guys from just saying, I'm just going to go on the IRS website and charge you for inputting the information?
That's true, too.
They could do that, and at that point, they have free software. A lot of people don't know any better. Yeah. And I really think it's more like the minorities, maybe people that aren't as educated or just gullible. Yeah. And they're like, well, can you do my taxes? And so they'll just go to the website and just input all the information, charge them $100.
It is interesting how this is going to play out. Well, and then expansion just to things that are talking about. So that was one interesting part that stood out to me because I'm in the industry.
Right.
But, for the most part, I think it's a good thing that we're expanding the IRS.
Sure.
It makes it more fair to people who work with professionals rather than the people who just commit fraud.
Correct.
And that's going to make it so much better for me, and it's going to make it a more streamlined process, hopefully, making things faster.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Are we or are we not in a recession?
Oh, we are, for sure.
But the government says we're not.
Well, that's stupid, right? Yeah. Definitions... anything can be redefined, right? A man's being redefined as a woman today.
Every day, yeah.
Anything can be redefined, but I obviously even one of my favorite quotes. I don't know if it offends anybody, but it should be funny, right? Even a blind squirrel can find a nut every now and then from time to time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not ignorant, and I ain't stupid, and I can look around me and just tell that things are not where they need to be. And it's not just from gas prices, and it's not. You can just see that things are slowing down
massively.
Yeah, we were moving at 100 miles an hour. I think we moved to like 40.
Yeah.
And we're not going faster. The economy is not moving faster. In fact, it's probably going slower every day.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe we are in a recession. Now, I don't think it's a severe one. So
it's not a severe one yet.
Well, it could be. Yeah, you're right. Do you think it's going to get yet? Is there a yet?
I'll tell you that it's all going to circle back to just exactly how much of a slowdown we get. There's so many variables right now because inflation is still very high, and a lot of the factors that are controlling the inflation rate has been supply chain issues. So that's a huge one. So once supply chain issues get fixed, we'll see how much of an impact that has on inflation. But then also the other factor is gas prices. People don't. I understand that the current administration is really pushing for us to go green, and I think that's great. But the problem is that when you look at the big oil giants, all of these are businesses, right? So let's say, for example, if you're in the oil business and I'm the administration and I tell you, hey man, it's my goal to put you out of business in the next 5 years. How are you going to react as a business owner? You're like, oh, well, hold on a second.
I got to keep these profits up.
Yeah, I have to keep profits up. I got to stop putting resources into this and take these resources and put them somewhere else.
It would be like, it just excuse because you're in the retirement field. It'd be like knowing you're getting to retirement and you're like, okay, I can't just blow money anymore. I got to be prepared for that winter.
Correct.
And that's what you're saying they're doing?
I mean, how else would a business react when somebody's telling you it's my goal to put you out of business? I mean, how are they supposed to react? I mean,
you can't hate on what they're doing.
No, you can't hate on what they're doing because they're going to say, well, then I'm going to take all my resources and stop producing oil and use these resources to see what my next step is, because you're saying that we're not going to be in business in the next 5 years. So I think that the transition is hard, and I also think that as much as I feel like electric vehicles are going to make, I mean, that's the new future, and I see that, but it's gonna take a while, man. I mean, like if you look at a lot of people today, I mean, they're so far away from being able to afford an electric vehicle that it's not necessarily the right time. And the way I like to look at that is if we remember back in the day, let's say maybe 2000 and I don't know, 2005, 2006. You know, back in the day, if you had a flat screen TV, you're a baller.
Oh, yeah.
You made it because those things were expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had,
and it got flat first before it got smaller.
Yeah, it was flat but still pretty wide.
Yeah.
And then eventually it got flat. And so if you had one of those, I mean, you were considered pretty wealthy. 'Cause, I mean, I don't come from money, so
I didn't have one.
Yeah, I didn't have one either.
I think I had one like in 2009.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was my first flat screen, and it was still one of those. They're still freaking big back then.
Yeah, I think I got my first flat screen probably like in 2010, maybe something like that. But nowadays, everybody has a flat screen TV.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cell phone, and that's just because the technology changes, and now it's just more.
And it becomes cheaper.
It becomes cheaper, right? That's part of creating deflation. You know, as technology improves, as we're able to make things cheaper, it creates deflation, which means that now you can buy those things for a much lower price.
Yep.
That's also my take on solar panels. I think solar panels are still at a stage where they're too expensive, and I think in the next 10 years they're just going to get drastically cheaper. But the problem is that we're not there yet, and so they keep on pushing the whole electric vehicle incentive, but there's still a lot of people that can't afford electric vehicle.
And they just put that income limit on it, which is dumb.
Right. And then to top it off, you're telling the oil giants that we're going to put you out of business, so they're like, okay, we're going to jack up prices, and so everybody gets screwed. And so I think that there's ways to transition better, and I think it's just got to be more of a long-term thing. I mean, you can't really blame the administration. Every administration wants to be remembered for something, and maybe the current administration just wanted to be remembered as the green administration. But, hey, man, I mean, right after COVID, after supply chain issues,
take us all out.
May not have been the best time to really push this. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you, man. Seeing that, I mean, truly, like when they did this EV credit thing that I read, and then they don't know what the income limits are, but they're going to be income limits. Mm-hmm. I mean, most people can't afford a Tesla. I mean, Elon came out with the Tesla model, the smallest one is a 3 or something.
Yeah.
And they said it was going to be what, like $30,000?
It's like 50.
Yeah, well, it was coming out, though, at 30 or 35. That's what they said when it came out. Like, this is going to be the cheapest electric vehicle you could ever get in your life.
Right.
And it's like $55,000.
55 grand.
And it's small. I've never really driven a Tesla. I've been in one Tesla my whole life, and it was an Uber. I got in the back seat of a 3 model, and I didn't even fit back there. And that's because I'm not a big dude. And I'm like, so you're going to pay $50,000 for this little car, or buy a minivan for your family, or get a big SUV, which you need if you've got more than 2 kids. Yeah. And that's most Americans.
That's most Americans, yeah.
And I'm like, golly, like the incentivizing of this is not making any sense to me. And that's why it's not that I'm not a green supporter. In fact, I had a bunch of Tesla stock last year, which I liquidated. But at the same time, I don't think it's the right time either. And so, yeah, EVs and all that stuff is not it. But the real estate market, let's go there, man. What do we think about this?
Well, I mean, definitely slowed down drastically.
That's an indicator of a recession.
Sure, yeah. And I want to say that over the course, at least my own personal opinion, I think over the course of the next year, there's going to be a lot of buying opportunities. Now, I will tell you that inflation, even though inflation came down from 9.1% to 8.5%, so it has come down, but we still
high.
It's super high,
still
man.
High. Like,
I did a video the other day, and I was doing the calculations, and at 8.5% inflation, in 8 years, the U.S. dollar gets cut in half. A little bit more than 8.
If we stayed here.
If we stayed at 8.5. And the only reason I said that is because I want people to understand the severity of what 8.5% inflation is. And so I really don't think that the problem is going to be going from like a 9 to an 8 or an 8 to a 7. I really think the problem is going to be when we try to go from like a 6 all the way down to 2. Like really bring it down to where we're supposed to be. And the only way that the government can do that is through monetary policy, which means they're going to have to continue to increase interest rates, which these mortgages are going to get more expensive than they are right now. They're going to have to, raise the reserve requirements. They're going to have to do all these things, which realistically always puts us in a recession. And so we're already technically in a recession, regardless of what the government is saying. 2 negative quarters equal a recession.
Well, we'll wait for the next quarter.
Well, yeah, exactly.
This quarter finishes.
Third quarter.
Yeah.
Now it's 3.
Yeah.
So it used to be 2, but now
yeah,
it's 3.
It's 3.
And so we're already technically in a recession, and now the media is announcing that we're in a housing recession, which, I mean, you and I have called for like the last 6 months. We saw this one coming.
The problem, though, is that with that, it won't really reflect until about a year.
Very slow, yeah.
Well, because comps are still up, and the reason that it won't reflect, at least in stats, it won't reflect is because the way we value real estate is typically based on sales.
Right.
And if sales have been pretty good for the last year, comparables, when you try to buy a property, you compare an appraisal, you look at comps, and you're like, oh, it's still good.
Right.
And so the value is still holding. But as they start shifting downward, the comps will go down. And then obviously the other effect, that's technical. The actual real effect is that people say it's just not worth buying this home.
Right.
And so
a lot of people are saying that now. It's just not worth buying the home. But it's cool to watch like the different price points of real estate, because like I'll give you an example. Like here in our area where we live, I mean, the prime real estate market is going to be anything between, let's say, 175, even though you can't really buy much for 175 anymore. But let's say
175
to put a bottom, 175 to like 275. That's really the prime.
That's a sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot because that's what people can afford here. So me and my wife just recently bought a home, and it was a pretty sizable home, and we were able to bring it down $80,000 from asking price, but because it was just so outrageously out of people's reach that the lady finally understood, either I sell it to these guys for this amount,
or I hold it for
another year.
Yeah.
And when you're paying like $5,000 taxes annually, that's just not something that you want to do. Yeah. But then I continue to watch like some of these bigger homes here in our area, and like there's just one particular home that I love, and I told my wife, man, if this thing drops to like $400,000, we're moving out of this home.
Is it the one with the river?
It already dropped $100,000.
No, it didn't. In like a day.
So what they did with that when it was
2 weeks. 2 weeks, right?
It was, I'd say, probably 2 months overall.
Oh no, that's not the one I'm talking about.
The one with the pond, the one that I had sent you.
I don't remember, but there's one that came out with like a lazy river in the backyard.
Oh no, not that one. No, not that one.
Okay. I thought I was talking about the lazy river one.
No, this is the one that's in Bronzeville, but it originally started.
Oh yeah, that was $499, right?
Yeah, well, it was originally $599.
It's $499 right now.
Yeah, it was $599, and it was on there probably for 3 months.
Yeah, I know, it's a badass house. It has a sauna and
it has a sauna and everything.
His and hers closets,
and it didn't sell, so they did the usual tactic: take it off the market. And then put it back on so that it doesn't show that it's been on there for 4 months. So they put it back on as a new listing, but now they put it as a new listing at
$499.
No, it went in incremental steps. They put it as a new listing at like it was $599. Put it as a new listing, I think, like at $550, and then it dropped it to $525, and now they're at $499. So literally, like in the course of like 3 months, it went from $600,000 to $599 to $499.
There must be other issues, but I would imagine the taxes on that thing were stupid.
Yeah, it's like right in front of like a clinic.
Yeah,
so taxes are high. Yeah.
Probably $15,000 a year or something, or $20,000.
Something stupid.
Something stupid. I looked at it. My wife and I, we looked at that and thought of we got ideas from it. Wouldn't buy it, but yeah. Got ideas because the house is about, I think it was like 20 years old or 30 years old.
It's an older home, but what I'm getting at is there's. It really just depends on where you live, and certain price points are going to get heavier than others. And so here, because most people can afford the 175 to 75 range, I don't see that market being affected too much.
Nope, it'll still stay strong.
It'll still stay pretty strong because there's a demand for it. But anything 275 and above, I really do see a lot of opportunity. Because a lot of people are just not going to be able to afford that.
Yeah, I'm looking. I've looked at some things because I know that there's anything over $500,000 right now in our area is going to stay. It's going to stay on the market for a while.
Yeah,
good while, because there's not many buyers out there just excited about financing. $500,000
at 6%. Yeah,
nobody gets excited about that unless they're coming from California. Which funny story. I had a guy call me the other day, and we were talking about California, and he's from California. He's like, I'm thinking about moving to Texas. I'm like, yeah, man, we should do it. He's like, yeah, man, I'm going to sell my house. I'm like, how much is your house worth? About $2 million. Oh, man, that must be a badass house. He's like, nah, no. Man. He's like, I see pictures of your house, bro. Like, you have a nicer house than me. And I said, well, if you sell it, dude, you could come here and buy a hotel.
Yeah. That's very true. That is very true.
Because I mean, with $2 million, you can buy a hotel here.
You could definitely buy it. Yeah.
Here, $2 million, you live like a king.
Goes a very long way.
Oh yeah, dude, you big old house. I have a friend of ours who has a very, very big house, and they built it about 10 years ago, so it's pretty. I mean, they get a good rate, right? And I was like, man, would anybody? In my mind, I went to their house the other day. And they have like an indoor basketball court. And they have an indoor gym. And it's like a 10,000 square foot home.
Okay.
It's a beautiful home. But then I'm like, would anybody buy this?
It's not very marketable. Not here.
Yeah, I'm like, you couldn't sell this thing. Like, that sucks to know that you did such a great damn job on your house, but you probably couldn't sell it. Like, you're in a market that couldn't sustain that type of price point, or at least there's not enough buyers for that price point. Like, golly. I mean, and it's even worse now. Like, it could have been something somebody would have bought 6 months ago or a year ago. Right. Could have been. But now you're kind of like, you're anchored there.
Sure.
And you just got to keep it. So everything in real estate has changed. I think that we're going to see some stagnant prices for a while, and then obviously probably a reduction in those prices. The values are not going to, maybe not significant. People are saying like 30%. I like the guys who are trying to scare people.
I would safely say 10 to 15% is what I think will happen. Like realistically, I do see.
Well, but it wouldn't be that much either, because let's just say it takes a year and a half, right? And let's just say we don't see any increase this year in valuation. Mm-hmm. So just on average, it's 3 to 5% increase, depending on where you live. In our market's about 3%. So let's say it's 3% was supposed to increase anyways, just by just general market appreciation. Next year, we're going to have 3. So, I mean, we're already swallowing 6% if nothing changes.
Sure.
So it's got to be like 5.
You think 5?
Yeah. It's gonna have to be, because we're already swallowing the appreciation that we're not gonna get.
Well, and then once again, it circles back to also because the housing market, it just varies so much by region. So
yeah.
So, like, if we circle back to here where we're from, yeah, I mean the market from the 175 to the 275, yeah, maybe 5%, but the 275 to half a million. No, I see that dropping 25 to 30%, because I mean,
there's no way they can.
Nobody can afford that, at least not here. Or
there's not a demand for it.
Don't get me wrong, there are wealthy people here, but there's only so many of them, right? And most of them are probably not in the market for buying a home. They want to buy like rental properties, and so that was actually one of the pitch points also to this lady when we dropped the price of this home, because it's a big home, and what I said was, look. You need to understand that people that are wanting to buy a home this size and this price, they just want to move in. They don't want to do anything. And this home needs a lot of renovations. Yeah. So that was my first point. So my second point was, like, people that are investors don't want to buy this home. It's too big.
And we got to renovate it.
And we have to renovate it. And so we rather buy 2 homes for the price of this home. And that way we have 2 properties. We'll renovate those and we'll rent them out. And so it was such a unique situation that she understood that the only way that this was going to work was if the price was dropped. So if you're looking for like your forever home, or you're looking for a home that or to upgrade your home and maybe rent the one that you're currently in, I think it'll work great. But once again, it just circles back to the market that you're in.
Karen and I have talked about building. We want to build one of these days. If the price of material goes down, which I think it will, because I mean that's actually we're going to have a huge oversupply. Because I can't, man. If I were in construction right now, I'd be scared shitless.
Yeah.
They are. Well, I don't know, man. I still see people, and I'm like, and they're we're getting the blueprints to build the subdivision, and I'm just like,
oh, you're talking about buyers, not the
no, builders, like builders, the developers, the builders. I would be scared shitless right now. I mean, unless you're building in that price point, right? Okay, that's okay. But even at that, you're not gonna, like, a year ago, you're going on track to do 40 development lots. Dude, they'll sell in 6 months.
Yeah.
Now you're probably talking about what, 3 years, and you're sitting on that money. Like, it scares the shit out of me. I don't know if I could do it.
If they know their market and they know the demand and they know the price point and they're building to that price point, I think they'll be okay. The problem is I just don't know how diligent some of these guys are. I think some of these guys just think, oh, the housing market's just never
correct.
Yeah, it's going to be fine.
People will buy.
Yeah, and they just go into it, and then they're going to be too far in. They're going to be too over leveraged.
And then foreclosure comes and they close on the lots.
Yeah, and then so there are several catalysts like foreclosures on
lots,
on lots or maybe new built or half built properties like that. That will create a significant shift, and that could affect pricing.
I mean, that would happen, and I could see that happening. I don't see a lot of development homes already, existing properties. That's going to have shifts, but man, construction scares the shit out of me. But that's how I know there's going to be an extra supply in everything. Lumber's going to have to come down, concrete's going to have to come down, every piece of material. So I was like, well, give it a year. If it really does come down to, even if the interest rates suck, I can always refinance.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it might be something to do, but I mean, I wouldn't build anything for a year. Probably wouldn't buy anything for my new home for a year.
Right.
I mean, that would be my recommendations in this time. Is that something you would say?
I would say so, man. Just kind of looking at the way things are right now. I mean, if you look at stocks have rallied a little bit, but they're still very much down. Crypto has just gotten annihilated. Like today, it's just not a good day. But that's
why I don't buy that shit anymore, bro. It's too emotional.
I love crypto. We'll do another video in the future.
It's too emotional.
But if you play your cards right, and let's say crypto and stocks are always going to be leading. Like they're always going to move first.
Yep.
They're going to move down first. Yeah, they're going to move down first, and they're going to move up first. And real estate is always going to lag. Real estate is going to be the last to move. It's the last to move down, and it's going to be the last to move up. So if you have money right now and it's just kind of sitting there not doing anything, and you invest it in, let's say, go simple.
Where would you put it? Let's hear this, right?
If you don't want to get too complex, just put it in the S&P 500, right? Because when the economy recovers, the S&P 500 is going to move first. So the S&P 500 moves first. Let's say it goes up 20 to 25%. You cash out of the S&P, and then at that point,
it's called a taxable event.
Yeah, it is. I mean, sometimes you can't avoid taxes, right? But
don't ever say that again.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Sometimes.
How dare you ever say that again?
Capital
when we go this video, you're gonna do beep, and then
capital gains, man. Capital gains.
I'm just joking.
You gotta love them. That means that you made some money, right? But if you kind of time things correctly, which is easier said than done, but you invest in stocks go up first. You liquidate stocks. By then, the housing market should have hit bottom. If it is going to drop,
and you cash out and you go into the market,
you cash out and you go into real estate. Yeah, I mean that would be you doing the they call it sector rotation. So you go into the index first because the index moves first, cash out, and then go back into real estate because once the stocks go up, then that's the real estate bottom, and then real estate will start to go back up.
I mean, I know there are people out there like what you're saying that do this. I'm just wondering how many people could do that, like are that ballsy, savvy, and ballsy is probably the biggest word because that's the biggest word. Because I mean, I would say, oh yeah, you know what, Raul, let's just do a trade, S&P $100,000, boom. And then tomorrow I look at it, $90,000, and then 85, and then 80,
75, yeah,
and then it's like 80, and then it hits 70, and it stays there for a week or two, and I'm like, shit, I'm 30 in the hole, and then I'm like, but Raul said it's gonna happen.
No, Raul didn't say shit. I'm trying to get you guys to understand how the market moves, but yeah, timing the market is very difficult. What I'm getting at is the stock market is going to move first in any direction, and then the real estate market is always going to lag. So if right now you just kind of have money sitting not doing anything, then I mean the market is still very heavily discounted. Crypto is very heavily discounted. Now, if you're okay with stomaching some more pain, I mean, you just have to wait it out.
Yeah.
I saw this one dude say one time, it's like, the stock market's not hard. You just throw your money in, and then you just wait, and then when it turns into a lot of money, you just cash it out. Like the problem is that people cash out when it's not turning into a lot of money. They cash out at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's opposite. Yeah. It's the emotions.
Now, and then the other problem is people invest in things that don't necessarily have a lot of credibility, or maybe things...
Or they go direct to a stock. That's dumb.
If you don't know a lot about the stock, and it's one of those stocks that I mean, it's very, very new. Company
Well, that's the only way you're going to make money, right? Because, I mean, if you invest in something that's been, what do you call the stock that's like been around, like an Apple stock, that's called it's not a growth stock for sure. It's just a
value stock.
A value stock.
Yeah, Apple, Google.
So you can invest in those, put your money with some security, but you're not going to make very much money.
You're not going to make a whole lot of money. But if you're going to do that, then just invest in an index because the index has
Google, Apple, everybody in it.
Like the S&P 500 has all of them in there.
Yeah.
Like me, and the reason why I firmly believe. Crypto, everybody calls crypto like a currency, but crypto's not a currency. Crypto's a technology.
Yeah, and it could be used for a lot of things.
It could be. Now, we're far away from it being used for anything, so that's why it's so speculative. But I will tell you that because I really do see crypto being life-changing technology the same way that the internet was life-changing technology. I just see a lot of future and a lot of growth there. So I'm okay. I'm not going to throw all my money in there, but I'm okay with taking that level of risk. If you're not okay with taking a huge level of risk, then don't do it. And with real estate, really the real estate play for me is just continuing to leverage the bank. So money that I make moving forward, I mean, I'm just going to save enough to put a down payment on an investment or rental property and then just leverage the bank for the rest. And I'm just going to do that 10 times over.
So the difference, just to be clear, I think for most of our kind of viewers and listeners to this is that if you get into the market, you can make money pretty quickly and you can lose very quickly.
You can, yeah.
And if you make very money quickly, actually, I guess the moral is you should never really want to take any money. The point is to try not to take a distribution because whatever you're investing in, it should be for a very long time. Would you agree with that?
If you want to be heavily invested in the market, yes.
Or anything, truthfully. Because, I mean, if you get into real estate, for an example, if we're right and it goes down in the next year, you don't want to sell. And if it goes up, you shouldn't want to sell either. Like you want to keep the appreciation is good.
I guess the only way you would want to do that is if you are in a situation where you just have a limited amount of resources and you're trying to figure out a way to maximize on those resources and you're trying to figure out how to diversify. So let's say, for example, somebody only has $100,000 to their name and they're like, okay, I want to figure out how to maximize on these $100,000 because this is all I have right now. And so you look at the real estate market. The real estate market is still heavily elevated. And so you look at the stock market. The stock market is relatively still pretty much down, quite a bit down from its all-time highs. So you're like, okay, well, let me just start. And you never want to throw the full $100,000 in at one time. You want to trickle it in. So let's say for the next 10 months, I'm going to put in $10,000 a month into the market. So $10,000 this month. And so you dollar cost average in. Okay, over the course of the next year, let's say the market eventually does go back up and now your 100,000 has turned into, let's say, 130,000. Okay, then at that point you're like, okay, I have 130,000. Real estate has fallen. Let me liquidate some of my stocks. Not all of it.
Maybe the 30, maybe the gain.
Yeah, maybe the gain, and then go and stick it into real estate. And you still have your original 100,000. Now you have a real estate property, and now you're more diversified. In situations like that, if you want to be that active,
because that's an active role, man.
That's it. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. For most people, they're not going to do.
Most people, they're not going to want to do that. But then also, most people are not wanting to invest in real estate because they feel like it's too much of a problem. And I don't really think it's that much of a problem. But even though it technically is passive income, there really isn't anything,
passive.
And nothing's ever really truly passive.
And I think in real estate, I think the allure is that you're going to get rich. You're not going to get rich in real estate. No. You can get wealthy. There's a difference.
Yeah, you're building a net worth.
And that's the difference. But most people get into real estate because they're just I'm going to be so rich with this passive income. I'm like, bro, if you just $200 a month ain't going to change anybody's life. I mean, maybe if $200 a month does change somebody's life, they shouldn't be investing. No. Like, you know what I mean? Like you've got a bigger problem today than that, right? Because I can't help somebody with $200. So I look at real estate and the stock market, anything. I just look at it as it's just long term,
right? And
I don't want to mess with it because I could sell at the wrong time. Well, I'm only going to sell when I need to sell, and that's probably when if I don't need to sell. Oh, I would have actually. The real way to do it is to die with your assets if you can.
Yeah.
Because then you get to step up in basis and your kids will not have to pay any taxes.
Yeah.
So you just transition of wealth. But most people can't get there because there's a point where they say I can't work anymore and they have to liquidate their assets.
They have to liquidate, yeah.
So I hope I never have to liquidate. That's what I watched a video with Grant Cardone where he said that. He said wealth people never sell anything.
No.
He goes, not a business, not a real estate, not anything worth value. They'll never sell it over the course of their lives. They hold it forever.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, that's powerful shit. Because, I mean, I didn't grow up thinking that way.
No.
It's like flip.
And
flip.
It's crazy because I mean, I used to think that way 3-4 years ago, and you and I had this conversation. We've learned a lot in the last 4 years, but I had a little property that I bought back in, I think I bought it in 2010, and I sold it back in 2017. And I've learned a lot about finances from 2017 to 2022. I sold it, and I was real happy because I bought the property for $60,000, and I sold it for $115,000.
Nice.
Had I have held it today, it would be worth $200,000. Yeah, and so we learn from our mistakes. But now I have told myself that
just don't let it go of anything,
especially real estate. I'm okay with selling stocks.
I could say that too.
I'm okay with selling stocks. I'm okay with selling crypto because I use that as a more aggressive way to try to build wealth. But I know that some of those I'm not going to hold forever. Yeah. But when it comes to tangible real estate, I have understood that as I acquire it, I will not sell it.
You should not sell it.
I'm not going to sell it. Yeah. I can borrow against it as many times as I want, and that's a great thing about real estate. Yeah, I mean, you start paying it off, and then you see a better opportunity. You borrow money against your property, and
go get the other one.
And go get the other,
and then let the bank borrow that use the money.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like even at our current residence, I mean, I'm not going to sell it.
No.
I mean, the only reason you ever need to sell real estate is you're not making more money.
Right.
And that's that problem with most people. They can't. They have to sell so they can get the next one. And I'm like, I don't want to ever have that problem. I want to be able to buy and keep. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to the viewers to say like I'm rich. I'm just saying like that should be your strategy.
Sure.
Everybody should be thinking about holding every single asset. All right. So this is a lot of fun, man. So tell anybody who's watching this how they can get a hold of you.
Yep. So you guys can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on YouTube.
This guy's good. How do they follow? What's the handles or the names or?
I don't even know. But I'll tell you what. I'll send.
We'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, we'll put it in there. Yeah.
I'll thought it was Tío Raul.
It's Primo Raul.
Primo.
Yeah.
Primo. That's actually a better one. Yeah. Primo Raul.
I'm gonna get one of these things and say Primo Raul. The only thing is it's gonna be red and green, and it's gonna have the Virgin Mary down here. So it'll be a little more.
And you'll know what he's driving because he has Gomez on the back of it.
In old English, yes, that's correct.
All right, guys. If you like this episode, you like more, click on the subscribe button. We enjoy doing this. This was a fun episode. I promise we'll bring more of this live content to you guys. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.